What's up? What's up? What's up, y'all? Look, welcome back to another episode of the Draft Nerds podcast. It's the busy season for me, and I'm pleased to be here with two of the Ravens goats. My man Ingraven, Vids, y'all know him. He really doesn't need an introduction. And then we got my man Cole Jackson, Road Graders. Everyone, if you're a Ravens flock member, you know who both of these gentlemen is. Welcome, gentlemen. How y'all doing?
We're good, man. Good. Appreciate you having both of us on for sure, man.
Yeah, anytime I get to cut up ball with you guys, I'm happy. So appreciate being here and ready for next week. We're finally out of the slump, and it's time to get into more Ravens football.
Yes, sir, man. I cannot wait. Listen, so some news broke today. J.K. Dobbins went over to Ravens West. So in memory of him, I'm rocking my J.K. Dobbins jersey. Shout out to you, J.K., man. Hopefully you can, you have a healthy season.
Yep.
And hopefully, some, productive career from here on out. It's not how you start, it's how you finish. We all hope you the best over there in L.A. But it is really funny, don't you think? All the guys migrating to the West. West.
Yeah, I think it's initially when you think about all the people that they signed, because it's J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, Bradley Bozeman, Hayden Hurst, Ben Mason, Greg Roman. And then it all makes sense when you think about who that GM is, because he literally is fresh. Joe Ortiz is fresh from Baltimore Ravens. Yeah. But it's still funny to see all the players that he took. It was like this mass exodus of people that end up going to the Chargers following him. But it's cool to see, though, man. But real quick, specifically with J.K. Dobbins, the only thing holding him back is health. That's it. Yeah. That's it. He got everything that you want to have in a running back, in my opinion. But the only thing that's been holding him back is health. And like you said, hopefully this season and moving forward, he'll be healthy and he'll be good to go.
Yeah, it was a tough one because, there was part of me that wanted him back just because it never comments about him and any negativity towards him had never had anything to do with him as a player. Him as a player was awesome. It was, the full package. When he was on the field and healthy, he was who I thought he was when we drafted him. But I will say he made some pretty damning comments after the 2022 playoff game where, and you know what? I appreciate his anytime someone in that situation and the way that fumble happened comes out and says, I want the ball. I appreciate that because that's not being cocky. That's not being critical. That's just, we know what he can do on the goal line. He did it earlier in that game. And he's just saying, just give me the ball in that scenario. So I was surprised just to see him go to a spot where I think he knows he's going to be in a bit of a committee because they have the same backs that when they were here, right? So, and that's kind of always been Roman's approach. But at the same time, a Greg Roman offense will run the football. So there is that aspect of it that makes me understand it. And yeah, I wish him nothing but the best. I hope he stays healthy and, I'd love to see them in December because I know we can beat Greg Roman in January. I know we can beat Greg Roman in January.
I would say though to wrap up the Dobbins thing is his words after that game was pretty poetic because here we are a few years later, AFC Championship game, and we forgot how to run the ball, and maybe they should have listened to J.K. Dobbins because had they listened to him, our running backs would have had more than 6 carries in a championship game. But sorry, Ravens fans, we don't mean to open up.
I drove 6 hours for that mess. 6 hours for that mess.
That's a long drive home.
It was a long drive home.
Something that you mentioned, Cole, when you talked about Greg Roman, how Greg Roman is gonna run the ball. I think even with everything that JK said after that playoff game against the Bengals, I could see why he would want to go there. Especially because people are looking at his career like, oh, yeah, talent's there, but he's been hurt. But he knows Greg Roman's offense. He knows it probably like the back of his hand. So if he can go there, not really have to learn a new offense, he may have some new terminology here and there, maybe, but he's pretty much going to know how it goes. So that can play to his advantage when he does get his opportunities. And like you mentioned, too, it is going to be a running back by committee. Because that's what we experienced with the Baltimore Ravens when Greg Roman was running the show. Even after Greg Roman left, it was still running back by committee. But with J.K. Dobbins, that can help him if he can go out there to LA and go show out, do real good this year on that 1-year deal, then whether it's an extension with the Chargers or whether it's an opportunity with somebody else, this could set him up nice for the future as long as he stays healthy.
Get your bag, my man. Get your bag.
Yeah. All best of wishes to J.K. Dobbins in LA. Real quick, before we get to our main first topic, I haven't gotten to hear you guys' opinions on our new running back, Derrick Henry. So to start with you, Ingraven, like, what did you think about Derrick Henry signing? How do you feel about it now?
Ooh, boy, Derrick Henry, the king. I liked it. I liked it a lot, but not for regular season. Like regular season, I'm not worried about Derrick Henry in regular season. I'm not worried about really Ravens running game in regular season. I know they're going to run the ball, and I know they're going to run the ball well. But where I was the most happy for the signing of Derrick Henry was for the playoffs, because this is the first running back ever since Mark Ingram, where they actually have a significant investment into that running back as far as money wise. Mark Ingram, he has signed a 3-year, $15 million deal, so they were paying him $5 million per. But come playoff time, he was hurt. He either had a high or low ankle sprain. I forgot which one it was. So he wasn't really. Huh?
He got hurt against Cleveland. Yeah.
So he wasn't really available all the way in the playoff game back in 2019. But with Derrick Henry, so with them bringing him in, the way that I look at it is like, all right, come playoff time, because we know Ravens, they sort of get out of character a lot of times. And shout out to Roquan Smith for bringing that up. I really appreciated that a lot, because you got one of your main leaders speaking on something that we all know is like not even an unspoken thing with us Ravens fans, but as far as in the building, it's one of the most unspoken things. But I'm glad Roquan spoke on that yesterday. But with Derrick Henry, if you got Derrick Henry on the sideline, then you know, like, you got to get him involved, especially with how they did with the Titans. He's somebody that you keep on feeding him over and over and over and over and over again. So they can't forget about Derrick Henry when it matters most. So that was my favorite part about the signing. So I'm looking forward to it.
He's going to have someone in a Travis Kelce headlock on the sideline if they ain't giving him the ball. So, it is true, though. It's a great point. It's just you don't come out with a game plan when Derrick Henry is on your roster that doesn't involve him at the forefront of that game plan, right? And that's no disrespect to Gus Edwards, but Gus just isn't Derrick Henry, and that's not really a shot at him. Like, it's just not Derrick Henry. He's not a top 5 running back in the league. So it's hard to kind of come out with a game plan that's not going to involve him being involved. And, I'm just the thing that I think about the most with the addition of Derrick Henry is, and I go back to 2019 because the clips always killed me, because you would get those just that basic, wide zone, outside zone scheme that the Titans were running. And then you'd randomly have the Ryan Tannehill pull the ball on a naked bootleg and run for 30 yards. And he'd be running so goddamn slow. And in my back of my mind, I'm like, that backside defender either has to play contain on Lamar Jackson, because you can't just ignore Lamar Jackson. He's a little bit faster than Ryan Tannehill, just a little bit. And so that guy's in a pickle. And then you see how Derrick Henry exploits those cutbacks. So now you think about, well, you get speed like Zay Flowers. You add more speed to the offense through, like, if they get an Xavier Leggett type guy. How do you defend that offense? There's too many spots you need to have defenders on the field. And that's what gets me the most excited. Just Todd Monken can have so many pieces at his disposal with a guy like Derrick Henry. And that's why they tried to trade for him at the trade deadline. They wanted a more dynamic runner. And he's a guy that you have to commit the defense to. And I don't think they had to do that with Gus Edwards.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a large shadow that you would have to ignore in a playoff game. There's no way you can forget Derrick Henry standing on the sideline. Coach War already says he's the closer too. How many times he got us in OT or late in the game? Absolutely.
Get Earl Thomas on the practice squad so he can be his lead blocker again.
Listen, the crazy part about it is that's literally the last time we seen Earl Thomas on the football field.
That's crazy.
The last time we saw him on the field, he was lead blocking for Derrick Henry. So
wow,
hopefully you're doing well out there, my man. All right, so let's get to our real first topic here, and that's Mr. Rashad Bateman. So Bateman seems to be a popular conversation every offseason, right? He just seems to be always a guy that people just want to talk about, right? And this video came out today. I believe it was today. I'll play it real quick. Of I think Eric DaCosta.
Line. Without giving anything away, who are the guys this year you think we should be looking out for that maybe make that?
Well, I'm bullish on Rashad Bateman. He's been hit with injuries, but he's just such a talented player, and I'm optimistic that if he can just stay healthy, I think he can be the guy this year. Last year we had a bunch of receivers, and it was kind of spread out amongst all those guys. I think this year we're looking at a situation where it's going to be Rashad and Zay, and with Mark and Isaiah. But I think Rashad's going to have a
All right, so
great chance to show everybody what he can do. He's a special talent. He's a great guy, and I think he's going to blossom.
Starting lineup.
All right, so y'all heard what Mr. Eric DaCosta had to say. What say you, Ingraven? What was he really saying?
Somebody come trade for him. I just think it was business talk, like straight up. I think Eric DaCosta just boosting them up. And shout out to UK Ravens, by the way, because they had Eric DaCosta on their podcast. So that's super cool. And I'm sure that was a fun I'm sure that was a fun experience for them for sure. But it just sounds a lot like Eric DaCosta before, when we've heard him say stuff like, "Oh, I'm insulted that y'all would think that we need to add wide receivers." Then he goes and drafts a wide receiver. It sounds like when he talked about Hollywood Brown around this time of the year a couple of years ago. Oh yeah, we anticipate picking up Hollywood Brown's 5th-year option. Boom, he gets shipped out. So I think Eric DaCosta is saying the right things. And hey, what he's saying, I do agree with it. Because I don't think he lied at all. Because if Bateman can be healthy, because that's what I think has been missing with Rashad Bateman and Lamar Jackson. It's just been that health factor, because Bateman's missed a lot of chunks of the offseason. So when they doing the mandatory stuff, then sometimes Bateman would be there. A lot of times he wouldn't be there. And then the timing of his injuries have been really bad. Like even you look at his rookie year. His rookie year, he missed a chunk of the offseason, missed some of the regular season. Then he started playing in the regular season. And him and Lamar had a connection like that. I like, whoa, every catch was going for a first down and all that. But then Lamar got hurt. So then that messed that up. And then the next year he got hurt, I think like maybe 5-6 weeks into the season after that Bucs game. They put him on injury reserve, said he decided that he was going to have surgery on his foot. And then last year he was like in and out in the offseason. Then he missed a little bit of the regular season, not too much, but it's just the timing has been off. And the timing being off in the offseason, that's translated to their timing being off in the regular season. But I just think that this is Eric DaCosta just saying, hey, somebody come get him. Now, if it was up to me, then I would love for the Baltimore Ravens, but y'all know I'm greedy, so I think a little bit differently. But I would love for the Baltimore Ravens to acquire a receiver of significance and still keep Rashad Bateman. But that's another conversation.
I agree. Cole, what say you?
Yeah, no, it did. Like, I think that's a really good summary, because sometimes when you talk about a player so explicitly, and like even John Harbaugh back at his press conference talking about how he's going to be so involved and more targets and all that good stuff, it's just like sometimes it's like you're almost glowing him up so much that it's like, are they going to trade him? So it's like, that not so deceptive deception. And I know there was talk of trading him last year. I think he was kind of exploring some of those trade routes, and so is that going to kind of come to fruition? I think the reason he's going to stay, I think, is just the draft compensation they'd get for him. You're now filling a premium wide receiver position in the draft on top of what you need to do at offensive tackle, on top of what you want to try and do at safety and cornerback and all that you don't really like. I think wide receivers already a need, but if you trade Rashad Bateman, now it's like probably your biggest need. So now you need to get a right tackle and a wide receiver that are ready to start day one in the first two rounds, that's a lot because you have no flexibility with those picks. Those picks have to go to those two positions. And if the board doesn't fall your way, you're reaching, right? And that's how you get bad draft picks. That's how you get Hayden Hurst in the first round because you're so focused on your need that you're going to pass DJ Moore and take Hayden Hurst. So that's really kind of what I'm worried about. It's just, he's in a contract year. I want to see him get paid. He wants to get paid. Is a fourth round pick more valuable or a motivated Rashad Bateman? But at the same time, the Ravens have never made players play as hostages. Like when guys have requested trades, they've facilitated them. And sometimes that's been done extremely professionally in, Marquise Brown's situation where we didn't know about it till the trade was done. And, I have a lot of respect for the organization because that wasn't necessarily in their best interest, but they didn't want to make him play in a place where he didn't think he was going to get, his best value. And I have a lot of respect for them as an organization for honoring that and not making him, again, a hostage, because that's how it feels, right? So, that's what I'm kind of wondering if that's going to kind of play itself out. So I'm really interested to see how this plays. There was all the buzz earlier this week from Benjamin Albright about the Raven interest in Cortland Sutton. So maybe that's a route they go. Maybe there's two trades. One of them's trading away Rashad Bateman, and then another trade where they're bringing in Cortland Sutton. I'm fine with that because I think the best case for this offense is to have two stud wide receivers and play a lot of 12 personnel and use those tight ends. So your 5-man offensive player package is Henry, Likely, Andrews with Zay and the other wide receiver. I don't think you need 3 stud wide receivers. I think you can live with 2 with those 2 tight ends you have.
Now let me ask you a question real quick. Do you think it would be wise of the Ravens? Say for instance, Eric DeCosta, he was telling the truth. And they actually go by that plan that he stated in the UK Ravens podcast with keeping Rashad Bateman and him getting more targets since Odell's not here anymore. Do you think that would be a wise move of the Baltimore Ravens to put that trust and belief in Rashad Bateman, especially given how the past couple of years have went?
I will plant my flag and go a step further. I'd pay him his 5th-year option. I'd pick it up. I believe in him. I think he can be that good. I think you don't normally see guys in the release package blow the doors off DBs like that and not become a good wide receiver. It's just there was always drops in his game, and that played itself out. He struggled with confidence, so it's always going to be that question of whether or not is he going to do it here. So I think he's that good of a player, and I think if he's traded, he's going to go on to have a very good career. But the question is the damage been done? Is his confidence blown? But I do remember having this conversation about Miles Boykin, where it's like, you saw the flashes and then you saw the lack of trust that Lamar had in him. And I remember when we traded him to the Steelers, I was like, traded in the division. I could just see this one coming back to bite us. And he went on to have 5 catches in 2 years for the Steelers. So it didn't, but sometimes you got to trust that the lack of production is there for a reason, right? So that's where you got to kind of, like I said, everyone's opinion on the need at wide receiver is basically a referendum on what you think of Rashad Bateman. If you think Rashad Bateman can be that guy, you probably see yourself needing a depth wide receiver. If you don't think he can be that guy, you see wide receiver needing to be drafted in the first 1 to 2 rounds, right? So that's, I think, where the decision making is. So I'm really interested to see how this one plays itself out. But seeing him get traded would it would really make me laugh just because of all these comments we've seen from both the head coach and the GM.
Yeah, I mean, you guys made really good points. I just think that, well, let me ask this question. Off-season workouts has started, right? It is voluntary. Do you guys have an issue with Bateman not being there?
Cole, I'll let you start with this.
I'm a big believer that you got to be, if you're going to have an opinion on stuff like this, you got to be consistent. And so the reason I'm saying that is because when everyone was being critical of Lamar Jackson not showing up last year, I was like, you don't win Super Bowls in April. And so, but this one feels a little bit different because Lamar Jackson was proven. And that's kind of where I'm like, you're trying to prove yourself. You're trying to earn them picking up that 5th-year option in a couple weeks. I know it's voluntary, so I don't feel like he needs to be there because it is voluntary. But if you're trying to play for your job, if you're trying to play for a $14 million check, I'd probably show up. But I guess the question is, does he have a training plan with the Ravens that he's worked out with their coaching staff that involved him training away from the team? That's not that unheard of. When Nick Boyle was working his way back from that injury, they told him to go to Arizona and train separately. So that wasn't like that was part of their training plan because he had a better rehab program. And I think because he was far away from Steve Saunders. So I think that was all part of it. So, is that part of what Rashad Bateman's doing? I don't know, but I do want to be consistent in my critiques of the voluntary workout piece. But at the same time, it's hard to compare your franchise MVP quarterback with a Rashad Bateman that's looking like potential first round bust. So, that's the spot for me.
Well, I mean, with comparisons, you might not be able to compare him and Lamar, but would you think you could compare him and Derrick Henry? Probably not. Different players, different positions, different career arcs thus far. But something that Derrick Henry said in the press conference yesterday, he said one of the reasons why he was there at the voluntary offseason workouts because he wanted to show the Baltimore Ravens, the franchise, and his teammates that he's here and he's committed. Now, I'm not saying that Rashad Bateman, by being away, he's not committed and not there for his teammates, anything like that, because we have never once heard, or I haven't never once heard that Rashad Bateman was a bad teammate or anything like that. Right. But with Bateman, it's very, very, very tricky because I see both sides of it because, yes, it's voluntary. They don't have to be there. It's not mandatory. It's not a requirement. Right. They're not obligated to be there at voluntary workouts. But at the same time, like, this is your potential opportunity. Like, this is a real big opportunity you got here. It's clear cut. Odell Beckham Jr. is gone. Zay Flowers on one side. He's going to be the wide receiver out there with you. And it's really you. It's up to you to take it. So I would think that he would want to be there, like, because this is your opportunity right in front of you. Unless there was something worked out, like, on the side, we'll see within the next couple of weeks or whatever. But yeah, it's very, very tricky because, it's not a requirement, but at the same time, with how things have gone thus far and that lack of rapport that him and Lamar Jackson, they just don't have right now, you would think that he would be there. But in my opinion, to pick a side, it's voluntary. Right. It is voluntary. It's April, and I know we could keep saying this early, but when it comes to being mandatory, then if he ain't there then, which I'm sure he will be, but if he ain't there then, well, if he's still on the team, but if he's not there at mandatory, mini camp and all that, then that would be an issue. But it being April right now, let's just hold off on it.
Right. So my opinion on it, I would say is, this is the first opportunity he's had pretty much since he got drafted to be at off-season workouts, right? Because every off-season, aside from his rookie year, obviously, they get drafted after workouts start, right? So every year he's been on the team since he's been drafted, he's been rehabbing in the off-season. This is his first year where he's not rehabbing. And he has an opportunity to be working out with the team, getting on the workout program, getting with the workout coaches, the strength and conditioning coaches, and getting with the plan as to, hey, this is what we have for you. If he indeed is going to be a big part of, if he indeed is going to be a big part of the offense this year, like EDC said, then to me, he should be a part of everything, because if they're planning to have you on an increased role, right? They're saying, hey, look, you got to be healthy this year. We hope you're going to be healthy this year, and that we have big plans for you. To me, you set the standard by showing up day one. Zay Flowers showed up, Lamar Jackson showed up, Derrick Henry showed up, Roquan Smith showed up. All of the leaders, right? All of the people who are saying, hey, look, follow us. We're going to show you the way. We realize that, you know what? We have some unfinished business. We want to get back to the AFC Championship game and win it. And it's going to start with all of us working out together. Yeah, we don't have to be here. But to me, I think it shows it speaks volumes when you show up to something that you don't have to show up to. Yeah. And for him to be a guy who's basically on a contract year, has never had the opportunity because of rehab to show up to all-season workouts, and now you got the chance and you choose to do your own thing, it just sends the wrong message. Like you said earlier, Ingraven, with Derrick Henry Derrick Henry wanted to send a message that I'm all in. I'm an MVP. You know, I mean, not MVP, but I'm a rushing champ. I'm a future Hall of Famer. I don't gotta be here. You know, Derrick Henry has one of the best workout regimens in the league. He doesn't have to show up to off-season workouts, but he wants to send a message to his teammates and to the organization that I'm an all-in guy, and I want to show you that. And so Bateman not being there kind of sends the wrong message. But again, if it goes back to the beginning of the conversation, which is maybe EDC was kind of being a little bit of, you know, he was kind of like, you know, putting a for sale sign outside saying, hey, come get him. Maybe he was told to stay away. Maybe he would say, hey, you know, go work out on your own, do your own thing, and keep quiet. Don't say anything, and we'll get you moved like they did with Hollywood. So I wouldn't be surprised if he got traded. I know there's a thing with the Ravens flock where it's either on one side or the other, right? You're on the side of you want to see him stay and get more opportunities, and you think he can be great. And then there's the other side of, nah, we've seen enough, right? There's the other side of we've seen enough, and it's time for us to move on. And I'm kind of in the middle. Like if he stays, I'm cool with it. I just want him to perform. If he goes, then
bring me Cortland Sutton. How about that? If he goes, bring me Cortland Sutton.
Bring me Cortland Sutton. Bring me Keon Coleman. Bring me Xavier Legette. Bring me one of these kids in the draft that I think we can get 4 years, 5 years of cheap, you know, contract on, and let's see if those guys can hit the ground running. Because Bateman, the injuries will always be an issue until it's not an issue, right? And so that's the biggest thing with Bateman. Now, I think he's a good kid. I think he wants to do well. Kind of reminds me a lot of J.K. Dobbins, if you're being honest. Like their careers are on like parallel. They're like the same player, in different positions. You know. Man. So you can go ahead, Greg.
When you finished, I was just gonna say that exact same thing because I was thinking the same thing, man. Both of them, they got it's there, but they just both been hurt, man. Both been hurt, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah, I agree. Spence says, nice haircut, Cole.
Got at lunch today.
My man's feeling good. Miss Gina says, she talks football, says, I hope Bateman is fully healthy and plays this season. I think whether it's for the Ravens or not, I think we all agree with that.
Yeah,
Did you Raven?
Get out of here, man.
Get out of here, Spence. But yeah, I think we all, that's everybody's sentiment, right? Like we want the best for him, just like we want the best for Dobbins. Whether it's here or not, that remains to be seen. But it is you know, tricky out there that Cortland Sutton did not report to his workouts because he wants a contract. The Ravens were sniffing around Cortland Sutton that last year. Bateman is not showing up, so hope you know maybe they get moved for each other. Who knows? So we got the Bateman conversation out there. We talked about Rashard Bateman. Real quick, I want to ask you guys. So we all know what the team needs are this offseason, right? They trade Morgan Moses to the Jets. John Simpson signs with the Jets. They let Zeitler walk. He goes to Detroit. And so and then they restructure Ronnie Stanley's contract to get him back basically on a 1-year deal. All right. So right now we have a whole like both guard spots and the right tackle position. What do you think our best options are? Let's start with the in-house options first before we go to the draft. Let's start with the guard positions, and the candidates for those positions right now, as it stands today, is Ben Cleveland. We have Salah.
No, we don't. No, we don't.
We have Voorhees, who I'm very high on. We have who else I'm missing? For the guards, am I missing someone? Cole, Salah, Cleveland, Voorhees. I know they like Sean Manning, the undrafted kid from
Yeah, no, I mean that's basically what it's look. They're going to bring in a rookie to compete with those two guys right now, and I still think they're going to add a vet of some sort, whether or not that's one of a higher end. Like we saw Cody Whitehair just sign a few days ago. Dalton Risner's still out there. He's a guy that they may look at, but I would imagine they'll draft a guy that's going to, have that guard ability. I think they need a guy that's kind of a guard center. But this is really, I can't sit here and make a compelling argument for people to trust Andrew Voorhees. And so that's on one hand. And on the other hand, I like him. I liked his college tape. There's a lot of things I like about him, but we just haven't seen him play. We haven't seen him play NFL football. We haven't seen him post ACL or ACL. Was it ACL or Achilles?
I thought it was
it must have been his ACL. So we haven't seen him post ACL injury, which, I'm always I think I'm just traumatized from people working back from injuries lately. So I'm just like, I need to see it right before I can give anyone a compelling argument for why Andrew Voorhees should be the left guard. So here's what they need to do. And here's what they'll do, like they do every year, is they need to bring in options. They need to bring in guys to compete. That's something that I think they did so well, bringing in John Simpson the year before, knowing that he'd go through the entire offseason program. And that's kind of what they just did with Andrew Voorhees. They drafted him knowing that he'd recover in the building. He'd be in meetings in the building. It wasn't, he was on the team the whole time recovering. So I like that aspect. And then, I think it's time to give Ben Cleveland an honest shot. And, there hasn't really been a time where he's played guard for the Ravens and I've been like, Ben Cleveland's killing us out there. I've never really felt that way in his play, especially in pass protection, which I think is his strength. I actually think he struggles more in run blocking. There was the clip that went viral against Jalen Carter where he got in the preseason last year. And, that kind of shit happens, So I'm not as concerned about that, but I just think it's time to give him an honest look. And, at some point you have to at some point you have to trust your drafting and development. And so I would imagine he's going to be your starting right guard. And so I think the real focus needs to be bringing in a really high end right tackle, a young one that can kind of be that right tackle beside Ben Cleveland. And then they're just going to have to sort out left guard.
Yeah. I think if you follow the history of the Ravens, Ben Cleveland is next. They draft a late round guard. Now he was a third round pick, so he was actually higher than some of the guys that were before him. But they draft a later round guard, right? Interior offensive lineman. They develop him. He starts his last year of his contract. He plays well. He goes. they hit us with he's priced himself out. He goes to another team. We get a contract. Lather, rinse, repeat. Right.
Seen this movie before.
So Ben Cleveland is literally on that Ben Powers, that James Hurst arc, that he's going in that same role of guys before him, and we're going to end up with a 4th round comp pick or something like that for him a year from now. So I do think Cleveland should get an opportunity to start at one guard position. I like Voorhees a lot, though. I'm really high on Voorhees. I really think he can be everything that they need him to be. And I think they're excited for him. It's the reason why they gave up a future draft capital to go back in to get him. Obviously, he's got to prove it, right? So, all your draft evaluations, all of your opinions you had about him before, now he's got to go out there and do it. But I think he can. He's strong. He moves well side to side, especially when pulling. I think he's really good at pass protection. He can be a little better at run blocking, but I mean, how hard can it be to block for Derrick Henry and you got a 300-pound Pat Ricard coming right behind you, and then you got Linderbaum right next to you. You got Ronnie Stanley on the other side. I think if they put him in that left guard position, I think he'd do just fine.
Now, quick question for y'all, because y'all are much deeper into the draft and stuff than I am. For Andrew Voorhees, did he have any injury issues in college?
I don't believe so.
Yeah,
he did.
Yeah, he had a ton. That's right, because he was an older prospect, right? So I believe he had an extra year of eligibility because he had an injury deferred year. Because he came out when he was coming out, it was thought he would fall in the in the draft because of his age, because he's now 25 years old. He just turned 25 in January. So last year in the draft cycle, he was 24, which is older for a prospect. Usually we're talking about guys that are like 23 being a little old. That's kind of conversation around Keon Coleman right now. So I'm 90% sure he had an extra year of eligibility because of an injury where he essentially had a medical red shirt.
Okay. It wasn't COVID.
I don't think so.
It profile. It says red shirt senior. So he definitely had a red shirt year.
Reason I ask is because I just feel like I would be a little bit worried if they were, and I know they're of course going to bring in competition because, like,
sorry to cut you off, Ingraven, but it was 2019. He suffered an ankle injury against Stanford and was sidelined for the rest of the 2019 season, allowing him to redshirt. So that was his redshirt year.
Perfect. Okay. Awesome. Okay. Thank you. I was looking for that information. Thank you for finding it. But yeah, I didn't know he had I didn't know he had the redshirt.
Oh, and sorry, he had knee cartilage surgery following the 2018 spring practice. So that was 2018, 2019, he gets hurt. 2020, he went unscathed. 2011 looks like he went unscathed. Or 2021. I'm missing a digit there. And then he was fine from there on. So he played 2021, 2022, fine. No injuries, kind of got back to himself. And then it's, of course, at the combine where he gets hurt. And it's just a kind of a non-contact injury. But yeah, that was definitely part of his draft piece, was just, being an older prospect, being a guy that has had injuries, and obviously is a guy coming off an injury.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, the reason that I was asking is because I just feel like it would be like, not that it would be, but it's just so much risk for it to possibly be like a David Ajabo situation. Somebody gets hurt during the combine. They drop, Ravens draft them. Okay, that's cool. They can have a red shirt rookie year. No problem with that because you draft them for the future. But then there's just that risk that, okay, maybe they may not be who they once were when they were playing in college. Like with David Ajabo, we've seen it. When he's played, for the most part, he produced. But it's just a small, tiny little sample size that we've gotten on the professional level thus far. So with Andrew Voorhees, I know he's been in a lot of people's conversation about being in the mix at the guard spot, and I think he should be in the mix for competition. But that's something that I would just be a little bit worried about if the injuries would just be a thing. And I just feel like the Ravens cannot, and I don't think they would, but I just feel like they can't put all their trust, they can't put all their eggs into the Andrew Voorhees basket.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely not. I didn't even know he had the knee cartilage thing. That's those injuries. Listen,
that was 5 years ago, though. So
yeah, but and then I know he did have 5 years of starting experience. That was one of his strengths, is that he had a lot of experience playing college football. I don't want to say he's injury prone because, like you said, the injuries are so spread out and they're different injuries, but. I mean, you do start to develop a reputation the more you get hurt. So here's the hoping that he stays healthy. But that brings me to my next topic, obviously, which is the draft, right? What do you guys think? What do you think the pick should be at 30? Are you an offensive line, wide receiver? Right, because it's a battle on Twitter right now. Like, you got the wide receiver crew, you got the O-line crew, and then even if you're on the O-line crew, some people want to guard, some people want to tackle. Where do you guys stand? I would love, for me personally, I would love for a guy like Graham Barton, who's a 4. He could play all 5 positions on the O-line. He can play center, guard, either guard position. He can play tackle. Where he'll be an All-Pro is inside at guard. But he can play tackle in the pinch if you need him to, kind of like what Marshall Yonder used to do for us, right? You remember our tackles would go down, they would slide Yonder outside to play tackle for a couple of games, and we wouldn't miss a beat, right? But he was an All-Pro and a Hall of Famer at guard. Graham Barton is that type of guy. I don't know he'll be there at 30, and that, in fact, is looking more and more like he won't be. What's some other prospects, Cole, that you have been looking at that you think could be there at 30, or could you see us trading up? What's your thoughts?
I've always been a big believer in BPA, and it just feels like the Ravens have had so much good fortune with guys falling to them. And like how many times did I say there's no way Kyle Hamilton gets to 14? You know, how many saw Tyler Linderbaum kind of falling? You know, it's just kind of like but this year just I think what I'm concerned about is this year just feels different because if we don't trade Morgan Moses, and I there's a huge part of me that regrets that trade when they did it, just because I just like, I feel like if we have to start him, we're fine. Like, it's not, you know, maybe you don't have the best right tackle, but you have an average right tackle that's not going to have your quarterback constantly running for his life. So it's just, but now it feels like we have to draft a right tackle. And like I said, with trading Rashad Bateman, I would feel like now we have to draft a wide receiver. And so it's just, you know, how do you manage that? And I feel like in situations in the past where the Ravens have really had to focus on the need, the pick hasn't gone their way. So, you know, if it means like, you know, the talk lately, I don't see him falling that far, but the talk lately was like Byron Murphy falling to into that range. And it's like, there's no way he falls there. But again, I said that about Kyle Hamilton, so who the hell knows? So like, if it's a guy like that is just too good of a defensive prospect, or a wide receiver, like you can put wide receiver in that boat too. You can put really any position in there. If there's someone that, you know, is slipping, I have no issue with them pulling the trigger, but it's just really going to change how you view that second round pick. It now has to be an offensive tackle. You know, my number one go-to has been Kingsley Swamatea. He's just a guy that I've just fallen in love with his profile. I completely understand that he needs to have kind of a top to bottom rework of his pass protection technique, and I'm okay with that. I don't have a huge issue with that, because we had to do that with a guy like Tyler Smith when he was coming out of Tulsa. I remember the exact same kind of conversation. It's like, this guy's technique is absolutely terrible, but he's physical, he's athletic, he, you know, has everything else I could want. And they, you know, the Cowboys have been able to do that, and they've been able to turn him into an all-pro. And so that's the type of thing that I feel comfortable doing. So whether that means you can trade back, recoup a pick, or, you know, what I like actually is trading up. And that's something that, you know, I think Ravens fans will not be huge fans of. We're always in the trade back group, it feels like. But I do like the prospect of trading up if you feel like you can get a slipping offensive tackle. You know, in the early 20s, you could see a team like, you know, the Vikings maybe trading back, especially if they have to give up some draft capital to get a quarterback. They may want to, you know, trade back and recoup some draft capital. So that could be an appetizing spot to move up. But I feel like there's years where we can jump up and really get our guy. And if there's an offensive tackle that they're in love with, I'd love to see them do that and just kind of solve the right tackle spot. And a guy that I really like is Tyler Guyton, because I think he can be that guy to step in, play day one right tackle for you. And I think his skill set is projectable as a long-term left tackle. And that's really what they need to be thinking about, because this is probably our last year with Ronnie Stanley. And so we're going to be in the left tackle market next year. It's going to be hard to draft left tackles if you're a playoff team, just, you know, picking at the end of the draft. So if you see a guy that is like, he can be a right tackle in 2024 and then be a left tackle in 2025, I think he has that skill set.
Now you did the same thing too. I was just getting ready to ask you, like, do you see any prospects that can do just that? Because Ronnie Stanley, his contract is expiring after this year.
I really think Tyler Guyton can be that guy. And I like that he has experience protecting a blind side, even though he's been a right tackle his whole career at Oklahoma. His quarterback in 2022 was left-handed. So he was a right tackle on the blind side of that quarterback. So the question is always, can he transition sides? And, you know, what's his muscle dexterity like? Can he wipe with both hands? You know, stuff like that. Obviously, I can't answer those questions based off his tape, because I only see him playing on the right side. So that's a risk you have to take. But in terms of his skill set, in terms of his athleticism, his play strength, his range, all that stuff, I think he can be that guy. I think he's a guy that has a projectable skill set to be a left tackle.
Yeah. So I like Guyton. I think he's a little raw though. That's my
Definitely
only thing.
And that's why he's going to go a little bit later in the second round or in the first round.
Yeah. His athletic profile is just unbelievable. I mean, talking about a dude is like almost 6'8", unbelievably long arms. He's the way you draw it up when you draw up a tackle in the NFL, but he's just so raw. Doesn't have a lot of experience. Well, he has the experience, but he's just his technique. You can tell he's just still developing, and I just don't know. Like he's the type of guy I would draft if you already have a tackle, a veteran tackle like a Morgan Moses already in place, where you're not feeling like you're forced to start him right away, and he can kind of develop and come into his own. And then when you put him out there, you know he's ready. I feel like there could be some major growing pains with Tyler Guyton if he has to start year one, especially if a team drafts him to be a left tackle right out of the gate. I think he does have a better shot at right tackle, at least as a rookie, but I think he needs to develop. I definitely think he needs to develop. Another guy in this draft is Amarius Mims, who's a guy he's been mocked to us, but recently he's been mocked to go a little earlier than us now. And now he's a guy that has a lot of athletic traits as well. His issue is the injuries, right? Here we go again. That word that we all hate with the Ravens is injuries. He hasn't played a lot because he's had to deal with injuries. And so how much do you trust your medical staff? How much do you trust that those injuries are behind him and you think that he'll be good to go, going forward? And because he has all the traits as well. I mean, you're talking about a guy that's like 6'8", 340 pounds, extremely long arms, athletic as heck, can pull, can do all types of things that you would want to do in a Todd Monken offense. In fact, he played in the Todd Monken offense at Georgia. So Todd Monken would know exactly what to do with a kid like this. I'm not necessarily convinced that he'd be there at pick 30, but if he's there, I think they would have to turn a pick in.
That what you just said about the injury part, just from that alone, I would just stay away, man, because again, if somebody, not to say people can't recover from stuff because they obviously can, not to say injuries can't go away because they can, but it's like one of those things. If somebody shows you who they are, then you gotta trust it, because we've seen that a lot of times, especially when it's come to even veterans that the Ravens have brought in. I remember Sammy Watkins. When the Ravens signed Sammy Watkins, it was like, okay, well, we know he can make some plays, but he gets hurt a lot. And what happened? Well, he got hurt a lot with Odell Beckham Jr. just last year. We know throughout his entire career, he's been a baller, but he gets hurt a lot, and he's never really been fully healthy. And last year, a lot of the same stuff, it just continued. So if you bring in somebody out of college, you drafting somebody out of college, and they got an injury history, in my opinion, I would just stay far, far away.
Yeah. So, Cole, what do you think about maybe drafting a guy like JPJ, Jackson Powers Johnson, and then slotting him in at guard? He'll give you that backup center. He can start guard. What do you think about him? Because he's kind of falling down a little bit bored. So he's kind of coming down the earth a little bit. I think people kind of getting settled in on him, and he might actually be there at pick 30. What do you think?
Yeah, I love him as a player, and it's not that it's just when you have this need at tackle, and you have this need at receiver, and you kind of need an edge rusher, and you need a little bit of depth at corner. Can you go guard at 30? That's going to be the question that they have to ask. I think he's got, and the other question is, where is his best position as a pro? Is it going to be center? Or is it going to be guard? And I do think it's center, but I do think he can be a starting caliber guard, and a good one.
Yeah.
So, and he has that experience at Oregon playing right guard in his own scheme. So I like all of that. It's just, can you spend pick 30 on a guard? The Ravens have had no issue with investing at non-premium positions in the first round. They've picked a safety. They've picked a center. They don't really seem to give a shit. I don't think that's going to hold them back from doing it. So it's really going to depend on who is on the board, because if he's your BPA, he's your BPA. And I have no issue with that. I have no issue with them going with the best player, and you need to improve your offensive line. So it makes sense. I get that for sure, but it just comes down to what was on the board, and could there have been a more impactful position drafted, I think is the question.
Okay.
But I love the player. Love the player. Like
So
as a player, no issue.
Yeah, absolutely. I love him as well. I think he's a versatile guy. He did play some guard at Oregon a couple years ago before switching over to center. Let's switch over to every Ravens fan's favorite position, wide receiver. So what type of receiver? Let's talk about that. What type of receiver do you think this offense needs? Do we need a 4-2-1 vertical guy like Xavier Worthy, or do we need a big body guy like a Keon Coleman or Xavier Leggett?
Need for speed. Lamar Jackson, he loves the deep ball, and I feel like a lot of times he will be he was ready to throw that deep ball any and all day. And a lot of times I feel like he would overestimate some of his receivers' speed. So if you give him somebody with Xavier Worthy, I know he probably ain't gonna be there. But if you gave him somebody like Xavier Worthy with that speed, I think that would be a perfect fit, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think last year one of the struggles of the offense was hitting that deep ball, and they wanted to push it downfield to Rashad Bateman, and the chemistry wasn't there. The deep ball tracking ability wasn't there. So I go get a guy like Leggett that, he's got the speed, he's got the length, he's made ridiculous downfield contested catches where he's just gotten up for it, right? So, even if the ball's thrown off, I trust his ability to track that ball and get it. With his athletic ability. So I just feel like, and he also gives you that big body and a guy that is a true outside receiver. So I just think he kind of checks all the boxes for them. So love that skill set that he brings. And I think he fits so well in what they want to do.
Yeah.
And I would throw like Adonai Mitchell would just be such a good fit. I really think, he doesn't have the jump ball ability, but his ability to run deep routes is just so high level that I think he'd be a really nice fit here.
So there's a couple of guys I like. I like Xavier Leggett. I think the big body speed, that combination is rare in this draft. Because you got guys who are either big, but they're not fast, or you got guys who are fast, but they ain't big. Xavier Leggett has he has that combination of size and speed. So I do like that. I love Keon Coleman. I think he's going to be a much better pro than he is when he was a college guy. I mean, at Michigan State, you can't even name the quarterback he had at Michigan State, right? And then he transfers to Florida State. He starts out hot in the beginning of the season. He tailed off. I think he had a lot of inconsistent play from the quarterback position. I think he'll be a much better pro. But when I think about the Ravens offense, I think about Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson in the backfield. And the amount of attention those guys are going to garner at the line of scrimmage, right? You're going to have to put 8, 9 in the box to stop Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson from running the ball on you for 250 yards every week. So with that being said, is now safeties have to creep in. I think there's no better way than to pay that off than to have a guy on the outside like a Xavier Worthy who runs 4-2-1 that you can play action, pull the ball out, and now you got Xavier Worthy screaming down the sideline, running behind the safety, and now you big plays, right? And that's what we need in this offense. I kept feeling like last year we were just a little bit off of having that big play offense, and Lamar consistently overthrowing Zay Flowers and overthrowing OBJ. And I know OBJ used to be a vertical threat, but that wasn't his game anymore, right? Zay Flowers can run deep, but he's not really a vertical threat. I think it'll be really hard to overthrow Xavier Worthy. I think the one guy he really didn't overthrow that he had was Hollywood. You
Right.
a lot more in those deep shots. And now they don't have a guy on this team right now that can make the defense pay for cheating up to stop the run. And I think Xavier Worthy would just make this offense that much more dangerous because of the speed element and his ability to get behind the defense. So now, if I'm a defensive coordinator, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, what do I do? Do I sell out to stop Henry and Lamar, or do I put the safety back to keep this kid who runs 4-2-1 from getting behind my defense? What do I do? That's a conundrum that no defensive coordinator wants to be in. And I think the best way to pay off the Derrick Henry signing is to draft a kid like Xavier Worthy. And I think he could be there. I do. I think he could be there. I know people come up with the speed, but there's a lot of good receivers in this draft. I think AD Mitchell will get picked higher. I'm not sure about Brian Thomas now. He's kind of coming down to earth a little bit. He was at one point he was projected top 15. Now you're starting to see him at 20, 25, 30. So who knows where Brian Thomas is going to go in that pile. And then you have Worthy, you have Coleman, you have Leggett. I'm starting to think now that Leggett finds his way into the first round. I didn't think so about a month ago, but I think now he probably find himself in the first round.
That would be interesting because everything that I see where people say that he's expected to be a second round pick. Yeah. But of course, things could change, especially on draft night, especially if there starts to be a run at certain positions. Speaking of wide receiver right now, if there's a run on them, then he could end up jumping up.
Yeah.
I'm just picturing that picture of EDC looking out his binoculars on. That just again, like it was kind of like what we talked about with the comments made and things that come to fruition. That becoming a meme just feels like it's something that's going to come to fruition.
Hey, when you get a reaction out of EDC, the way Xavier Worthy got a reaction out of EDC, I'm just saying that's something to think about. I see Yuri mentioned Tez Walker. He's another vertical guy. He's a little bit taller, I believe, than Worthy, but he's another vertical guy. He didn't perform as well at the Senior Bowl, but if you go back and watch his film,
he's a guy you can get later too. That's kind of the thing that interests me about Tez is like you kind of get into that Tez Walker, Javon Baker, Jalen McMillan, like that kind of tranche of guys.
Yeah, third round guys. I think if you look at let's say they go guard tackle first round, second round maybe you just go best player available, then you could be looking at a Javon Baker, a Tez Walker. You could be looking at who else could I see in that third round? Because I think Ladd McConkey will be gone. Maybe what's the kid from Alabama? Burton, yes, Burton. And then Ricky Pearsall. I think Ricky Pearsall will go in the second round. What's your take on Pearsall, Cole?
I haven't watched him, so I'm not going to blow smoke up your ass pretending I've watched him. He's just one of those guys that I keep saying I'm going to watch, and I just have not gotten to.
Yeah. He's I didn't think much of him at first, but I went back and watched him. I started watching him. I'm like, the kid, he's gonna be good, man. He's got some vertical speed to him. He runs really good routes, and he got good hands. Burton is a guy I do like. I don't know if he's second. I don't know if he's second round, maybe third round.
I don't know if he's on their board after some of the issues.
Oh yeah.
I just I don't know how they'd handle that. It was a kind of a weird situation. It's like it wasn't a domestic violence situation, but it was a violence situation. And there's also been some issues with when he left Georgia, I think it was. So it's just such a weird situation that I don't know how they'll handle that one. It's I feel like if they, given the statements they've made around, domestic violence, I feel like they're going to take a lot of flack if they were to pick him, even though it wasn't a domestic situation. But he seems to be that guy with character concerns that, it's like a George Pickens situation where they're not going to want to touch him, and he ends up playing for the Steelers.
All right, so I got to ask you guys this question: what's the player or position that on April 25th at pick 30, the Ravens take? That you're not answering your phone, you're not doing a podcast that night. You upset about what happened.
Peyton Wilson.
Who?
If they draft Peyton Wilson or any linebacker for that matter, I'm just gonna go cry in the corner and not talk to anybody.
Oh man.
Or a tight end.
Or a tight end, right?
Oh, that's a good one too. And a quarterback.
Quarterback.
Yeah. I would say a safety. And the reason that I would say safety is because with Kyle Hamilton, we know he's a safety, but he's just a baller. He can do everything. And you have Marcus Williams too, but I just feel like if your best player available at 30 is a safety at that time, then I feel like you would just need to trade back. and just get a couple more picks early in the second round, because I just don't feel like it would be worth the investment to draft a safety at that position, or a running back too.
Yeah, I think they need a safety, but I would completely agree that a safety at 30, even if it's, even if Tyler Newbin's your top safety, like there's other guys you can get later that are going to fit what you need in that. I'm not saying they don't need that. They do.
Right.
I want to replace Geno Stone, but that can't be your top guy that you're doing that with.
I think for me, realistically, I don't think they would take a tight end or a linebacker.
I can see them taking a linebacker, and that's what terrifies me. And I know Peyton Wilson's going to be available, so
yeah, he will be. For me, it would be like a guy like Kool-Aid. I think Kool-Aid is a good. I think he's a good player, but I don't think he fits the Ravens. After watching his film, he is not interested in tackling, and that's like number one on the book of play like a Raven. He does not like coming up and run support. He kind of gets lost a little bit in zone coverage. He is a good man cover corner. But there are some things in his game that we're like, for example, on a run play, he would kind of hang back instead of coming forward, right? Or he'll get blocked and stay blocked. And to me, that's not play like a Raven, right? And to be honest, watching him, he reminds me a lot of Jalen Armour-Davis. And I don't know if we need more of that. So that's a guy I would not be happy with. I think he will be, if he gets drafted into the right situation where they can utilize his specific skills, he can be a good corner because he does have good coverage skills. I just don't think he fits what the Ravens do. The Ravens like physicality from their corner. They like guys that will come up and tattoo you in the run game. Marlon Humphrey, Brandon Stevens, right? Those type of guys. He doesn't fit that profile. That would be a pick I wouldn't be too happy about. Obviously, anything that's a linebacker or a tight end I would be in disbelief, right? It would be like 2019 all over again, like DMV said, Hayden Hurst 2.0. But that brings me, when you mentioned safety, that brings me to my next topic, underrated needs, right? I think safety is a really underrated need. And here's the reason why. Let me break this down. So we all know Geno Stone just left for free agency, right? And we know how they like to deploy the three safeties, but that's not even the main point, right? The main point is this. This is the last year of Kyle Hamilton's contract of which he can't negotiate a new deal. Now he has 2 more years on his contract, but after the 3rd year, he can negotiate an extension. Now, we've learned anything from the Lamar Jackson saga is that you want to get these deals done early and not late. You don't want to wait because the price goes up, the longer you wait, right? The more all-pros he adds to the mantle, the higher the price is. And so, to me, you're going to have Linderbaum and Kyle coming up at the same time.
Oh,
you're going to get one of them done early. I prefer to get Kyle done early because I feel like Linderbaum will be a little bit easier to get done. And so, plus, Marcus Williams, to me, if you pay Kyle Hamilton, I don't see you keeping Marcus Williams in the future. So with Marcus Williams is his cap hit, I think you can move on from him next year. You pay Kyle Hamilton, and if you draft his replacement this year, he'll play that 3rd safety role. Marcus Williams goes, you release him next year. That rookie then next year starts as the other safety to Kyle Hamilton, and now Kyle Hamilton is your paid safety, right? He's the guy that you're going to pay. I don't see them paying him 2 safeties, and so now you can have a rookie deal, Kyle Hamilton paid, and then you can move forward that way, right? They got to be really smart with how they manage the cap because of Lamar Jackson's contract and as the years go on, how bloated that contract gets from a cap standpoint. So what do you guys think about that? I think you always want to get a year ahead of it. So it's kind of like when they drafted Trenton Simpson while having Patrick Queen, knowing that eventually Patrick Queen would move on and they would move Simpson into that role. You can draft Marcus Williams' replacement a year early, knowing that you got to pay Kyle Hamilton very, very soon.
Oh, yeah, you sure do. And that's going to be a lot of money, especially if he keeps on doing what he's been doing.
That's going to be some money.
That's going to be some filthy money, man. But and we hope that he does keep doing what he's been doing. Yeah. But yeah, you always want to definitely get ahead of the game if you have the opportunity to do so. That's what we were just talking about, like with Ronnie Stanley's situation. Yeah. You want to try to get ahead of the game as soon as possible. But if I had to go for a Underrated position. Well, one of them before last week, I would have definitely said kick returner or return man because Devin Duvernay, he left. Tylen Wallace took over at punt return, but kick return, they were kind of like flip-flopping and stuff. It'd be Devin Duvernay, it'd be Justice Hill. But now you got Deontay Hardy. All right, that's taken care of.
Right.
I would probably say depth, or not even necessarily depth, but an edge guy.
Yeah.
An edge guy. I know they just brought back Kyle Vanoy. And this will be nice because last year he came in after week 3. So he didn't have an offseason at all with the Ravens. Had to learn that defense didn't have an offseason, but now he'll be here an entire offseason. And he still had, 9 sacks last year.
Yeah.
So he produced even in a short amount of time. But you brought him back, which is great. You still do have a Dafe away. But what I was talking about earlier with David Ajabo, you hope that this is the year. You hope that he can be healthy this year. You hope that he can go off this year. But you cannot base everything just off of hope alone. My saying is stay ready so you ain't got to get ready. That's why I was saying edge guy. I know you still do got Tavius Robinson now too.
Yeah,
so we'll see about him.
Yeah,
so
like
can't rule him out because when he did come in, he saw that number 95 and he did make some plays here and there, which was nice.
Yeah.
But I would say a depth edge person.
Yeah, I like that. Cole.
In terms of underrated needs, it's actually so this is a pick that you wouldn't be doing till later in the draft, but it's going to be kind of a guy that has the ability to play center because Sam Mustipher's gone. Mustipher did have to step in for Linderbaum, and center's just one of those positions where things can, especially when you're playing a lot of shotgun and pistol, things can go from bad to worse real quick. And so, a guy that can be, compete at guard and also provide that ability at center, I think is very important. That's why my go-to is Tanner Bortolini. He's just that guy that he's the future Pat Ricard where he can play all 5 positions, or Pat McCary where he can play all 5 positions and be that kind of backup center. But there's also some other backup centers. And again, I want a guy that's going to be a backup center, but can also compete at guard and kind of push these guys because I think you need that versatility in a mid-round pick. And with an all-pro type center in Tyler Linderbaum, it's not like you're like they're gonna sign him long term. He's gonna be a Raven for life, all that good stuff. So I'm really looking for someone that has the ability to play center, but can compete at guard and try and push someone for a starting spot.
Yeah, I agree because to your point, Linderbaum did miss a game or 2 last year.
I think it was 2 games.
Yeah, first and second game, I think.
Yeah, yep. After he got hurt in the Houston game,
and people were terrified of Mustipher coming in, but he played admirably. Like he did. He stepped. I was down to re-sign him just for that simple ability.
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't re-sign him. He would have been cheap. I'm sure he didn't go for that much in free agency. Yeah. So there's a lot of, but to that point though, there's a lot of interior guard centers in this draft that, like Tanner Bortolini is a guy I do like a lot. What's the other kid from Arkansas?
Bowlinger.
Yeah, bro. Did you see his 40? Like that was crazy. The 40 he ran.
I'm talking like a 4th, 5th round guy. I think he's gonna go like he reminds me of that kid the Eagles drafted.
Which one?
In the Linderbaum draft class. He was the 2nd center taken.
Cam Jurgens?
Cam Jurgens. He reminds me of Cam Jurgens. I think he's going to be a solid pro.
You think he's going to go what? Day 2?
I can see him going day 2 for sure. Yeah. Especially if having that ability to play center, a lot of these teams might be looking for a starting center, right? Like a team like the Bills, that's going to probably have to go wide receiver early. They got to go back at the center market. So
yeah. That's so DMV says backup quarterback and backup running back.
Ooh.
Yeah, backup running back's a good one because Keaton Mitchell, we're not going to probably see. We might see him in a playoff push, maybe. But I don't think you're going to get a whole lot out of Keaton Mitchell this year. And I thought Justice Hill really took a big step last year in terms of taking on some big responsibility. But I still think you want to have a guy that can spell out Derrick Henry and, provide a complementary skill set. And it sucks because Keaton Mitchell's like the exact type of guy that would be the perfect complement. Like it's literally perfect. Yeah, and unfortunately,
down, man.
Yeah. So that's why I'm looking for a running back that's, got some receiving ability, got some pass pro ability, because I want a guy that's going to be here the following year that would complement Mitchell and Henry. So I'm not necessarily just looking for a speed demon to replace Mitchell, because once Mitchell's healthy, he's going to be right back in the mix, and he's going to be a big factor in 2025. So I wanted kind of a third guy that would complement that. And, with Justice Hill's ability to play really good special teams, play on the gunner unit, all that kind of stuff, I can see them easily carrying 4 running backs. So it doesn't really put Justice Hill's spot in jeopardy, but I need a guy that can kind of complement what those other 2 do.
Yeah. Are you guys confident in Josh Johnson as the backup? Like,
No.
I won't lie to you. Like, I'm not saying we don't need a backup quarterback, because I understand the argument, but I have this weird mindset where I don't think they're going to have a guy competent enough that, like, if Lamar goes down, our season's over.
It's over.
Like, it's unfortunate, but that's like Tyler Huntley was a fine backup. Like, he was an average backup, and he tried to Superman jump from 4 yards out. It was absolutely absurd. So, I'm always down to have a guy that you can develop, like a guy like a Tyrod Taylor that, he really developed really well in Baltimore, and he went on to do some really good things as a backup. So, Josh Johnson isn't a guy that's going to come in and win a couple games for you, right? Like that. He's just not. No disrespect to him. He's really worked hard. He's given himself a long career collecting NFL checks. So major kudos to him. But, I'm always down to take a developmental guy, but it's just like as a rookie quarterback drafted in the fifth, it reminds me of like DTR from Cleveland. Like that's a guy that you'd be drafting, right? And he has the Lamar Jackson skill set where he can, do some stuff with his legs, but is he really going to win multiple football games for you?
Right. I mean, I do like the kid Keaton Slovis as a developmental guy from BYU, late round pick. It didn't seem like the Ravens were super, They didn't really jump out there when they were asked about Malik Cunningham, right? It was like, he's going to develop as a receiver and as a quarterback. So I feel like you got 2 positions, you got no position, right? But what about a guy like Ryan Tannehill? He's still out there. Would you guys?
He's a free agent?
Yeah, he's still a free agent.
That's like I with the way they changed with COVID with the practice squad rules, that's where I look at that and I'm like, that's a good practice squad move.
That would be great. I mean, obviously, Lord, Lamar stays healthy, but for some reason Lamar goes down. I mean, we basically got the 2019 Titans.
What about Joe Flacco?
We got Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry. Life comes at you fast.
That's crazy.
That would be great. Imagine that, man. Like, wow, we really got the Titans offense from 2019. But I think you could do a lot worse than Ryan Tannehill as a backup quarterback. Yeah, DMV says we're about to unite the Titans and get Tannehill. But yeah, I'm surprised he's still out there. I mean, you could do a lot worse than Ryan Tannehill as a backup. So real quick before we go, we're 1 week away. I'm gonna go around each person. What do you think is going to happen on the night of April 25th? Trade out, trade up, pick, and then if they do pick, what position do you think they pick?
I will say trade away a player, but but stay at their pick. I'm gonna say the Ravens stay at their pick and they go offensive line.
Okay.
I hate that I'm about to copy you. I think they trade Rashad Bateman, but then draft an offensive lineman, and then are stuck having to pick a receiver on day 2 early.
Yeah. So you don't think trading Bateman would trigger them to have to then turn around and draft a receiver night 1?
No, I don't think they'll do it. I could see the argument for it, absolutely, and especially depends on how the board drops. Like it's not. But I just think they're gonna, sell you the internal Kool-Aid of, we like our tight ends and we're going to be a 12 personnel offense. It's scary to think about though, because that means Zay and Aguilar are your starters. And that's a scary approach.
That is.
And it feels like you're taking a major step back.
It is. The only thing is though, Bateman hasn't done anything to this point to feel like you're missing anything because he really hasn't been on the field.
There's
like,
so much potential there that I
I
gotta grasp onto it.
I know. That's the thing that keeps. It's like you're like, no, he's not. No. But the potential keeps drawing you back because you saw the Dolphins game, right? When he took off the slant for the touchdown, or the Jets game that year. You saw the game against the Bengals when he should have had his first touchdown. And you saw that other Dolphins game, right? And you're like, oh, man, it's there. But it's so few and far between. It's really hard to, like, put all your eggs in that basket and say, here we are, year 4. He's going to do something he hasn't done yet in 3 previous seasons. I just think if you do trade Bateman, you should be on the phone with Denver trying to see if you can get Courtland Sutton.
I love that approach. I think that would be one of their best outcomes because they're hitting it with a vet that they don't have to develop. You know what he can do in the NFL, and it's a guy that complements Zay Flowers really well. And again, I think their best approach is a 12 personnel offense using those 2 tight ends with 2 really solid wide receivers, and you get that with Sutton and Zay.
Yeah, and I think all of Ravens flock would like to see more Likely and Andrews on the field at the same time.
Yeah, when you think about Courtland Sutton, you look at he was a second round pick in 2018, I think. And with Jerry Jeudy, he was a first round pick. A couple years later, they just traded him away for a 5th and a 6th round pick. So with Courtland Sutton, the capital you may have to give up may be slightly higher, but if they just traded a first round draft pick from a couple years ago away for a 5th and a 6th round pick, you should be able to get Courtland Sutton for something cheap. You ain't got to give up nothing crazy for Courtland Sutton, especially because with the Baltimore Ravens, one thing that they love to do is circle back around for people that they really, really love. We saw with Justin Houston. They loved him. They didn't get him the first time. They came back around and got him. Well, Unique and
Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry, another one. So they came back around and got him. So with somebody like Courtland Sutton last year, they tried. It obviously ain't go through. So this could be the year where you get him for even cheaper than you might have gotten him for last year.
And he's that kind of guy. Like, he doesn't have the track speed, but he's a guy that's a deep ball guy. He averages 14.3 yards per catch in his career. And he's a guy that can play vertically, and he's got them long, gangly arms that I think he really fits what they want to do. He's a true outside wide receiver. It's the best case scenario for me is if they can find a way to get him, send Bateman off to greener pastures. And, I think you're addressing your wide receiver need without having to spend a pick in the first 3 rounds, which is a win for me, because then you're focusing those picks on an edge, an offensive lineman, and something like a corner or safety or a DB, we'll say.
Agree. What do you think, Cole, a Bateman trade would look like? What's the return on that?
I think they get like a 4th for him, or like a pick swap where they give a 7th and get a 4th, or like something like that. Like it's not going to be a lot, right? It's going to be probably enough that gets you basically what you're going to have to in turn trade for Courtland Sutton, because I mean, if Amari Cooper goes for, and that's the thing, Sutton needs a contract, right? So we've seen this trend of receivers getting traded for less compensation because you have to turn around and to shell out some money. So if Amari Cooper goes for a 5th round pick, how could Sutton really go for a whole lot more, right? And you see what Jerry Jeudy got traded for because he needed that contract. So I would say a 5th, like maybe you get a 5th for Bateman and you trade a 5th for Sutton and they're kind of canceling each other out. Like that's a win to me because you're making a big upgrade in who your wide receiver is.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, so maybe you take you take some of the capital you get back from the Bateman trade and then you send it over to Denver. Denver is definitely desperate for draft capital because they've given away a lot of it, to get Sean Payton and to get Russell Wilson over the last couple of years. So they could definitely use some picks, especially I think they could end up taking a player in the first round and then trying to double back to get back to the first round to get a guy like Bo Nix, right? And so that's a team like Denver, man, that may be ripe for the taking. For me, I think what we do, I agree with you. I think the Ravens make a trade on draft night, and I think it might be Bateman. Also, I think that we stick with our pick. And I'm going to say this. There's going to be a player that we're saying right now, there's no way we're getting him. There's no way he's going to be there. I'm saying it right now. That player is going to be there on April 25th, pick 30. We're going to get a player that we're not expecting that we're going to be able to get. I think a player that we don't expect to get is going to fall. I don't know who it is. Maybe it's a Graham Barton. Maybe it's somebody we're not even talking about, like a Cooper DeJean, right? We didn't even speak about Cooper DeJean, but I could see them taking him if somehow he's there. Maybe it's a Guyton, like Cole said. Even though I can see Cole, I can see.
As long as it ain't Peyton Wilson, I'm happy.
Yeah, I can see Guyton more than Mims. I can see Guyton being in more than Mims. I think it's going to be a player that falls because I think teams are going to get aggressive in this draft. You're going to see a lot of trade ups. Teams trying to target guys they want to go get, and that could just let a good player fall to us. I would love to see the team trade up, but like, I mean, come on now. We all know the Ravens. When's the last time the Ravens traded up in the draft? In the first round.
Lamar?
Oh, yeah.
Lamar.
2018.
Man.
And we were all shocked by that because,
but before that, it was never their mantra, right? It was always the trade back king. So
trade back king. So,
and they're always been so tight to the cap. It's always been we need players on rookie contracts to fill out these spots, and so I get it for sure. But if there's a tackle there, if I see Fuaga or Fotenu slipping into the teens, I'll gladly throw my second round pick in and go get one of them.
Go get them. You have to. You got to protect the franchise, man. Lamar Jackson, you just gave him a lot of money, and you need him to play all 17 plus something.
Right.
And if he gets injured because you failed to protect him, you're going to be looking real crazy, right? Like the Jets did when they gave up all the draft capital to get Aaron Rodgers and didn't put nothing around him, and he gets hurt in the first series of the season.
It's crazy.
So, yeah, Ravens, don't do that. All right, man. Listen, y'all, I appreciate y'all, man. I know it's y'all on the East Coast, and Cole, you in Canada. So I know it's late over there.
We don't even have time zones up here.
I appreciate you guys, man.
For sure.
And this was fun, man. We definitely got to do this again. We definitely got to do this again. This was really fun. I appreciate everybody who chimed in the chat. The chat was blowing up. This was awesome. Tons of viewers. Thank you guys so much, man. And don't be afraid, man. When you see us out there on Twitter, man, hit us up. Graven, you know where he at. Cole, you know where he's at, and you know where I'm at. So we always in spaces, talking ball, talking draft. So make sure you stay locked with us. And again, we appreciate you guys, and we will talk to you soon.
Yeah, man, this was fun. Appreciate you having us on again, man.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thanks a lot, brother.